Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions. One-on-one to score.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello, everybody. I am Bill Baker. Welcome to the show, and that is that other guy, John Fitzpatrick. For those tuning in and not too familiar with Major League Rugby, do yourself a favor, tune into ESPN Plus in the United States or a local broadcaster for certain teams. Or if you're not in the United States, tune into the Rugby Network. They broadcast all the games, and I believe it's still for free overseas. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is. Anyway, free to watch overseas. Give it a watch. It really, for no other reasons, for good rugby. Not necessarily for what we're talking about today, but just check out some great rugby players. And speaking about what we're doing today, we're going to be talking about the new MLR trial laws, which seems to be creating a buzz. Listeners, do us a favor, whether you're watching this live on Facebook or YouTube, give us a like, follow, and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Also, if you're listening to the podcast replay, which all these replays come out on Thursdays, go ahead and follow those as well. Share it with your friends and enemies. And leave comments, both here on the live feeds and on the podcast. We love the comments. We love some feedback from you guys. If you want to ask us or what guests we should have on another day, go for it. We're open to suggestions. Bitsy and I knock our heads together at times going, who the heck are we going to have on this weekend? So this week. So love your input. But again, like, follow, and subscribe to these shows. All right, let's do this, Bitsy. Lots to talk about today. Our guest is waiting for us. Let's all welcome Major League Rugby Director of Match Officials, David Wilkinson. Hello, David.
How are we, folks?
We're doing well. How are you?
Very good, very good. It's stuck into the second weekend, so no, we're doing very well.
And where are you located?
Utah, Salt Lake City in Utah. Very cold at the minute, but great if you like a bit of skiing or snowboarding, so it's fantastic.
Oh, and also one of the most picturesque Major League Rugby fields in all of MLR.
I would go further, maybe one of the most picturesque rugby fields anywhere. It's stunning. It absolutely is stunning. With those mountains in the background down at Zions Bank there, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, they got the mountains. Charlotte's got the skyline. New England's got a lot of people drinking beer in the corner, whatever it takes.
Fantastic setup though in Boston. They've done a great job up in Wilkinson. They really have.
Yeah, they really have. And also they're welcoming WER, the Women's Professional League, to I think at least 3 matches over there in Quincy on off days from Major League Rugby, but that's a great ad as well. So David, for those who don't know who you are and what your title is or your role, fill us in who you are and what your position is.
Yeah, so as you correctly said there, the Director of Match Officials is my official title. Referee manager for short, I suppose. But basically, yeah, I worked for the Irish Rugby Football Union for 18 years. Various different roles locally in Ulster and then into a national job there. And then after that, I turned pro as a professional referee. Referee pro rugby for the best part of 10 or 12 years in Ireland and Europe, URC, Heineken Cup, etc. And then when I finished up that, it was around COVID time, and I was lucky enough to be appointed the national referee manager of the RFU. So took that on, basically all about referee development and trying to push referees up towards the top ends of the game, up towards World Rugby, etc. And then an opportunity obviously came up over here, and now I am the head of the referees for Major League Rugby. Relocated the family, and we're very happily settled in Utah at the minute. So second season here now in MLR. It's a challenge, of course it is. Challenge dealing with the referees and dealing with coaches and players and teams and TMOs, etc. But this one I love. I mean, I'm passionate about trying to improve the standard of officiating, and whether it was in Ireland in my previous role or now in MLR, that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
So, hold on, Fitz. I'm going to interrupt you early in the show. Okay, once the show, I have to do this.
Starts already.
A few years back, when Nigel Owens retired, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, we got this league over here, this competition. Come on over here." And he's, social media. Let's do this. And I reached out to MLR. No, they didn't invite him. That would have been a great ad. Come on.
It certainly would. Yeah, no, this Nigel was one of the best. I was very lucky enough to work with him many times,
Okay.
both in the international game and obviously in URC, etc. So yeah, what a character and an absolutely superb referee, brilliant referee.
Yeah.
Nigel's great. But yeah, David, question there, because obviously, we talk about growing the game here in the US and raising the standards of the players. But part of all of that, and a very important piece to that, of course, right, is developing referees, right, to help everything kind of improve. I guess my question that I'm leading to is, you're obviously overseeing and officiating for Major League Rugby. Is there overlap with the governing body, USA Rugby, as well?
Very much so. Excuse me. Actually, when I came in, one of the things that was sort of restructured was exactly that overlap. So believe it or not, my role is actually across both Major League Rugby and USA Rugby. So having just finished sort of 2024, when we finished 2024, I basically sit back into what I would term my USA Rugby role, and work very closely with Jimmy McGregor to develop the match officials within the USA Rugby pipeline. Everything that I want to do, I mean, and that was sort of my sales pitch in terms of trying to get this job when I applied for it, was that I wanted to increase the standard of officiating here in North America. That's what I wanted to do. And as part of that is obviously a development pathway from USA Rugby and Rugby Canada to an extent as well, but to try and bring them up through the USA Rugby ecosystem and into MLR, so that we're not reliant on incoming referees from other unions. So we don't have to ring Nigel Owens up and bring him over. That we've actually got quality match officials here within North America that we could actually service our own league. But obviously, listen, at the end of the day, it is a professional league, and we do need to make sure there's a quality assurance there. But ultimately, sort of long term, that's my goal is to try and develop that pathway from USA Rugby right up into MLR. And I'll be honest, maybe we'll be trying to be ambitious for even at the other end of MLR up into the World Rugby echelons as well.
Great. And look, we thank every referee, man or woman, that decides they want to grab the whistle and make sense of the laws. We'll get to all of that in a second. But so if I'm understanding that right, the pathway is to try and move referees along in terms of upskilling their level in case they want to say, hey, you know what? I'd like to do MLR. I want to do an international match. Is that essentially the pathway or how that looks?
Absolutely. I suppose my own mission statement, which I think, or I'd like to think I brought across from my RFU days, was I want to make every referee the best referee they can possibly be. For some people, that will be maybe D1A. For other people, that might be MLR. For other people, that might be Six Nations Rugby World Cups. And obviously, everyone's got their own goals and targets, and it's basically my job to try and assist them and help them reach those. And along the way, hopefully make a few good referees for MLR, so that we don't have coaches complaining after every week.
Where would the fun be if they did? So Fitzy alluded to you, working with USA Rugby at that level. What's your take? So we interviewed Scott Lawrence, and it wasn't a criticism. He just felt like the way the breakdown is called in MLR may be affecting the USA side in a negative way when they get to the, playing against Ireland or whoever else. Is that something that's being worked on between the two, or is it good? Is just maybe a misunderstanding? I don't know. I just, that question off the top of my head, I apologize.
I'd like to think it's a misunderstanding. I mean,
Yeah.
the breakdown's the breakdown. It doesn't matter whether it's All Ireland League in Ireland, MLR in USA, or Shoot Shield down in Australia. I mean, the breakdown is the breakdown. The laws are the same, and certainly everything that I'm trying to do in terms of how referees interpret that law and referee the game is in line with World Rugby, is in line with World Rugby sort of philosophy and sort of directives and the way they want the game refereed. So I'd like to think about it. It certainly should be the same. So it shouldn't really matter whether it's a referee in Europe or a referee in New Zealand or an MLR referee. We all should be refereeing the breakdown exactly the same way.
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, with trial laws, which we're going to get into now, competitions like Major League Rugby seem to be the place for World Rugby to trial new laws. I guess since it's a young league, it makes sense. For instance, a few years back, the 50-22 was trialed in Australia and South Africa, the 21, and then adopted as a full-on 22. I personally love that law. Is that something that you've adopted as this is just the way it is? We're a younger league. This is where they're going to be trialing laws?
Both. Yes and no. Yes, to an extent. We have a very good relationship with World Rugby, I've got to say. But I've got to say, some of this stuff obviously has come from Major League Rugby as well. But if you look at around the world in terms of what World Rugby do across professional leagues in terms of trial and things, we're very lucky that we have that relationship with World Rugby. Any law trial that is implemented in any competition, whether it's us or whether it's South Africa or wherever, has to be approved by World Rugby. So the league basically has to apply to World Rugby for those trials to be sanctioned. We've got a good relationship with World Rugby, so we do work in partnership with them. But I mean, certainly we've had law trials in for the last 3 or 4 years, and then obviously this season, actually some of those trials were actually obviously adopted into full law by World Rugby, and then we obviously brought in continued 3 that were already in place from last season, and we brought in another 4. But we work in partnership with World Rugby around those. Listen, it's all about trying to create a better game. Everything that we do in MLR, and obviously everything that World Rugby are trying to do. So it's all aligned to create a more attractive, safe product, entertaining. And I mean, we are the business of it. Yes, we're sport, but I mean, ultimately it is entertainment as well for viewers at home. And everything we do is aligned with World Rugby and ultimately sanctioned by World Rugby. Yeah.
So these laws we're talking about now, were they originally brought up by Major League Rugby, or was it World Rugby bringing it to Major League Rugby?
A bit of both. So, and firstly, they were discussed obviously what the MLR Rugby Advisory Committee, which is made up some GMs, some owners, some head coaches, and obviously league staff. We worked obviously in partnership with World Rugby to review the law trials that were in place in 2024. And again, it was just a sort of a conglomerate conversation in terms of how can we make this game even better. And ultimately, that's where we landed. We've got the 4 new ones, and obviously the 3 continuing ones.
Yeah, Tim, talk to us a little bit about how these discussions come in place, right? So the perception from fans is a league releases trial laws, and they're like, oh, how can you just drop this so suddenly? I can't imagine that like they decided 2 days ago, hey, let's just up and do this. So like, talk us through like the timeline of how those discussions start and what you're looking for. So you help us get a sense of like, this is not just a wham, let's just try it over a week. Go ahead.
Hey, it's certainly not. Let me tell you, those discussions starts. I think the final was on the 4th or 5th of August for 2024. The discussions around what we were going to do for 2025 probably started the week after. And that's being absolutely honest. So it was probably sort of mid-August when we started discussing what we were going to do for 2025. That conversation started with a review of what we had in place for 2024. Then we obviously had a conversation with Rugby around what they had brought in on the 1st of July 24, because they had already adopted new laws, which we hadn't, because obviously we'd only three or 4 games left when they brought those in. So we finished out our competition. But we ended up reviewing what the impact that the law trials had from 2024. Then we had a discussion with World Rugby around other competitions around the world. For instance, Georgia, it's called Tidiati 10 in Georgia. They were trialing some laws in their professional league as well. So we looked for some data from World Rugby around those. That was obviously, I'm sure we're going to get to the scrum stuff in a minute, but that was related to some of the laws Georgia had in terms of their scrum stuff around the ball, etc. So we looked at the data there. We then bring all the information in terms of the review from 24 and what's going on around the world and our conversations with World Rugby. We brought that then to the Rugby Advisory Group, the MLR Rugby Advisory Group, and we discussed it there. I think we had 2 or 3 meetings around it actually in terms of how it had impacted the game, etc., etc. So that probably went all through the fall. Then probably late, I think it was late November, MLR basically had decided where we wanted to go and what we wanted to bring in. So then we officially applied to World Rugby back in November that we would like to bring these 4 trials in, continue with our 3 old ones and bring the 4 new ones in. World Rugby then sort of take that to their committees and basically say yes or no. And we were very lucky that World Rugby came back and said yes, that this looks good. We would be very very interested in the data that comes out of these trials as well for our own research. So we worked in partnership with them. The approval was granted, so we got approval, and then it was before Christmas. We met with all the head coaches and discussed what new laws were coming in, or the new laws, the new law trials, the World Rugby interpretations. I think there were 16 in total between the law changes that happened in July 24, then the interpretation changes that World Rugby adopted in November, then the World Rugby global law trials that came effect on the 1st of January, and then the 4 new and 3 existing MLR trials that came in for us from round 1. So we met with all the coaches to discuss all those, which obviously then helps the coaches going into preseason, etc. So they know how to coach players, and the players know what they're doing. And then round 1, they were obviously started to be implemented. So a long process. It was certainly not just here, let's see, MLR, let's see what we can do, and then just come up with a few things. Absolutely not. It was a very long, drawn out process.
And I guess you touched on it earlier, but just give us like the general spirit of thought behind implementing some of the law tweaks in terms of improving the game.
They're all are based around 2 things. One is obviously player safety, and secondly is to try and speed up the game without, and I know there's been a lot of commentary around it, without actually getting away from the ethos of rugby union. Scrums are, let's be honest, let's get into it. Scrums are a massive part of rugby union. We do not want to remove the scrum. Okay, we don't. Otherwise,
Can you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. We do not want to remove the scrum. Otherwise, we go and play NFL or rugby league. Okay, we're not doing that. So yeah, no. Listen, it's about trying to create a more attacking brand of rugby, more entertaining product for our fans, a simplified product. We are very conscious there. I think our commissioner Nick Benson has got this phrase which I absolutely love. Americans are rugby fans; they just don't know it yet. And I love that statement. And what we're trying to do is those rugby fans out there that don't know it yet, we're trying to make them know it, to simplify the game without getting away from the absolute ethos of rugby union, which is all about contest and continuity. So no, we are MLR. Contrary to some commentary out there, MLR are not getting rid of all scrums.
David, you say speed up the game. Are you talking more ball in hand, more action?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if I can give you an example, one of the law trials that we brought in was at the ruck. So the World Rugby law stated that if a team did not use the ball in possession of the ruck within 5 seconds, it was a turnover and the opposition got a scrum. The idea of that law was to actually brought in to speed up the game, to make things so that the scrum half didn't keep the ball at the base of the ruck for more than 5 seconds, and we kept on playing attacking rugby. But when you actually play it out, when you think about it, if that offence happens and a team don't use the ball within 5 seconds, well, the sanction to encourage speeding up the game is actually to give the opposition a scrum, which could take nearly a minute. So actually, when you think about it, the going from the philosophy of we're trying to speed up the game, but actually the sanction for not speeding up the game is a scrum, which slows it down even more. So that was obviously the thinking behind that individual one. But that illustrates what we're trying to do, in terms of we don't want stoppages. We want ball and play. We want continuity. We want phase play. We want attacking play. But which still doesn't mean we get away from rugby, which is about contest and continuity. Teams still can contest the breakdowns. If they're good enough, they'll turn it over. If they're not, then continuity continues.
And you mentioned safety, which is a huge factor for this game, as we all know. And looking at scrums, it's crazy. I just looking at stats last year, I think at some point, I noticed that the top 10 international caps in the world, 6 of them are blocks or props, 4 of them are front rowers, and including Ireland Healy still right now. The top prop has 143 caps. So when I think of safety, well, these guys would be the top cap earners in the world. It seems like it's pretty safe already. So can you just explain a little more about safety around the scrums?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do from the day anybody picks up a whistle, now you go into your first referee course, it is all about safety. Listen, you're right. I mean, we are lucky in terms of where we're at. Thankfully, we don't. I mean, unfortunately, we do time to time across the globe have really bad injuries and scrub. We do, but I mean, the majority. If you think of all the rugby that's played across the world and on any given weekend and the number of scrums and that, rugby is pretty safe. But in terms of that, we want to obviously mitigate against that, try and keep the game as particularly M&R, which is obviously what we're dealing with here, keep it as absolutely safe as we possibly can. That's why we have gone very hard in terms of our approach towards foul play, which is why we've gone very hard in terms of our approach to reset scrums. We do penalise the players in terms of bindings and body angles if they don't. Not only is it illegal in the law from a technical point of view, but obviously it does cause a safety concern. So, listen, our referees in M&R certainly around foul play at scrums take a fairly strong approach, which I personally believe is the right approach. Will Rugby have obviously backed that as well with what they're doing in terms of foul play and scrums as well. So, listen, player safety is paramount.
All right, and let's touch on the continued trials from last year. Just briefly, there's the red card replacement law 9.30, the auto 7 points. I won't say the law number, no one cares. And the scrum resets. I'm curious about those real quick. Why they're continued on? Is it we need to see it more? And also, for me personally speaking, the auto 7 points, I'd never understood that. Can you also talk a bit about why that's a trial law?
Yep. Again, it's about speeding up the game and getting the ball back in play. This is a professional league. These are professional rugby players. If a team scores a try directly underneath the posts, we've got a minute here now for a conversion to be taken. When was the last time you ever saw a professional rugby player in any league across the world miss a conversion directly in front of the posts? So I mean, it almost becomes a formality. So the approach to here and then M&R is, but okay, let's get rid of the formality. Let's get the 7 points that they score underneath the post and don't worry about the conversion, because I would be very disappointed, as I'm sure any coach would be, if a kicker missed a conversion right in front of the six. So that one is about just, okay, try scored. Let's get back to halfway and get on with the game. So again, it's about speeding up the game, increasing that ball of play time, increasing the opportunities for attack, etc., etc.
Well, it just touched on the 7 point thing real quick. And I know people get upset about people saying we're Americanizing the game over here. But you've been in the country long enough where it's an entertainment, industry, and we do feel like maybe has to be a little Americanization to the sport. Maybe not the laws or the game itself, but the stuff around it. So, and here, every other major league sport, football, whatever else, stats are huge. So with this automatic 7 points, they're taking away points for a kicker. So there is that battle with the Americanization of the sport. So I mean, what about that? I mean, should that even be considered?
I'm sure if you're an out half and you missed out on the league's top point scorer by 2 points, then yes, that as an individual basis, I'm sure that player may be slightly annoyed. But to bring it back to your point about Americanization, what are we trying to do? We're trying to sell this product not to the out half who wants to get to be top of the points tally. We're trying to sell this product to a nation of 300 million people there. Convince those Americans that they are rugby fans, and bring more people into our sport. We'll get more people watching it, more people playing it, more people refereeing it. So the greater good with respect to the out half who may miss his points tally, the greater good is about what we're trying to do for the 300 million people across this country in terms of trying to get them introduced to rugby, and speed up the game and get that ball back in play so they could learn about that continuity and contest and the rock and the breakdown and offsides, etc.
Well, it's killing my fantasy rugby points. Go ahead, Fitzy.
I had a feeling it was going there. Also, Bill doesn't like the automatic 7 because Bill can never kick anyway. So, like, don't worry.
No.
I want to touch on. Let's get to some of the new laws that are being trialed here. And I could read out all 4, but don't need to do that here because I think the perception from fans and maybe from rugby fans or players who played for a while, and it seems like the emphasis again is on reducing scrums. And I know you you said a few minutes ago that that's not the plan at all to reduce scrums here. But I guess what has been your group's response to hearing the chatter that MLR is trying to eliminate or reduce scrums in the game?
A bit shocked, I've got to be honest. Listen, I understand it. And certainly us that are involved in the game, the referees, the players, the coaches, the league staff, etc. We did not get aboard in terms of the hype and hysteria and the bandwagon that the MLR's wrecking Major League Rugby, etc. We knew coming into round one there were going to be scrums. If you like stats, Bill, here you go. Our average scrums now, a very small sample size, given it was only round one, but our average number of scrums compared to last year went up by 2 in round one. So we had an average of over 15 scrums in the game. So we actually went up in round one. So MLR tried to wreck rugby union and get rid of scrums. Just is one, is not happening, and two, it did not happen, and the stats don't bear that out. If we look at some of them, they're not going into touch in terms of no scrum, just line out only. They're not going into in goal. And oddly enough, the free kick at the ruck. How often do they happen? They happen once, maybe twice every 3 or 4 games. So it might be once every 4 games that there's a knock on at the edge. I think you saw one in round one. So I mean, in terms of the number of times that this is going to happen in the game, they're so minimum. It is going to have zero impact on Major League Rugby as a game of rugby union. It's just not. Now, the fact that scrums went up in round one, maybe not surprising given it's round one and teams are rusty and we do have a lot of handling errors, etc. But we anticipate, we still anticipate we're going to have 10 plus scrums in the game. We're still going to have 10 or 12 scrums in the game. I mean, and I genuinely do mean this. A scrum is an absolutely integral part of the game. It is a way to restart the game, and it is a contest. And it is a pushing contest and a contest without possession or quality of possession. So, listen, honestly, we're not getting out of scrums. The stats don't bear that out. I think anybody that has watched the first couple of rounds in MLR will see there are still plenty of scrums for those who love a good arm wrestle. So, yes, there will be the odd one here or there that would have been a scrum last year. That's not going to be a scrum this year. But honestly, certainly 3 of the 4 are going to have such a minimal impact. Viewers and fans aren't even going to notice it. They genuinely aren't. The unsuccessful end to a maul. The thinking behind that in our discussions with World Rugby is it's not about getting. So if a team bring the ball into a maul, form a maul, and don't use it, then obviously the referee blows the whistle. The ball doesn't come out. The referee blows the whistle and we turn it over. Last season it would have been a scrum. This year it's a free kick. The reason we've actually gone to free kick is because if you have a free kick, you're guaranteed possession. If you're not guaranteed, for possession from a scrum because it's obviously a contest. So the whole philosophy behind the maul one is actually to encourage the team that bring the ball into the maul to get it out. It's not about penalising them for not using it. It's actually about encouraging them to play with the ball so that they know that if they don't use it, well, actually, last year we had a scrum, we've still got an opportunity to get the ball back here or disrupt the quality of possession, etc. This year they have no chance. So it's not about getting rid of the scrum. The philosophy behind the maul one is actually about getting the team that have taken the ball into the maul to get it out so that they can actually continue playing attacking rugby. So that one might have, as we go out through the season, that one will be the interesting one to watch in terms of the impact. But again, the philosophy behind it or the thinking behind it, as the data, believe it or not, the Georgian League, as I mentioned earlier, the Didiati 10, and let's be honest, the Georgians love a scrum, right? we know their whole foundation is built on scrum. It has been a huge success at their league. And it's the one scrummaging nation in the world that has absolutely prides itself on its scrum, have adopted this with absolute vigor and enthusiasm. The coaches, the teams, the fans, etc. I think it was worth for us to look at it in MLR as well. As I say, it's about getting the ball out of the ball, not penalising and not getting rid of the scrum. So that was the thinking behind that one.
Yeah, it did, and I don't want to sound dismissive of people that are criticizing these law trials because again, hey, they're being vocal and it shows that they care about the sport, they care about how this thing is going. But some of their criticism, and I wanted to get to this, was that they felt like some of those changes could potentially maybe harm the U.S. men's national team on the international level because maybe the rules aren't quite the same. So maybe there's a two-part question there. One, do you feel like it could potentially hinder, the forward pack, the forwards for the U.S. men's national team? And then two, are the laws the same at the international level, right? Just making sure everyone's playing under the same law so that when U.S. men's national team scrums down against South Africa, it's not an issue, if you catch my drift.
Firstly, I'll deal with the scrub one first of all in terms of because, and listen, you're right in terms of people's commentary. It's fantastic that people are actually taking the time and effort to post around what Major League Rugby have done. That's what we want. We want fan engagement. So that's the first point. So that is fantastic, good or bad. And hopefully something like this coming on with you guys and talking to you guys will actually get our message from a Major League Rugby point out there in the ether as well. But in terms of the scrum, in terms of harming the national team, I personally don't believe it. I know some other fans might and players might, etc. But I personally don't. And the reason I don't is what I've referenced before. We're not getting into the scrum. We're still going to have 10 plus scrums. So, if we're going to reduce the number of scrums from 14 down to 12, which is probably where we anticipate it'll be at. Last year, their average was around 14 scrums. We anticipate there's going to be 12 on average per match. And as I say, round one was 15. So the very fact that we've still got scrums, we're the USA Eagles players that are playing in MLR are still going to have plenty of opportunity to have real combative scrums across Major League Rugby. So that's point number one. In terms of the rest of the laws, are they going to impact the game, or are we playing a different game? No, we're not. Because if you take across the 7, as I said, the three that are going to have such a minimal effect, the knock on into in goal, the knock on into touch, and the ruck one, the free kick at the ruck, they're going to happen so few times. It's really not going to make any difference to a national team. The 20-minute red card, obviously, in terms of the game, other competitions are trialing that. In fact, if you watch the Six Nations are trialing a version of the 20-minute red card. That's not going to make any difference. The kicker, okay, yeah, he doesn't get his kick in front of the goal, but he should be getting that anyway. So I don't believe. I mean, listen, we're about to find out, but I suppose I don't believe it will impact the Eagles side. Others may have a different view, and I suppose only time will tell, and the proof will be in the pudding. But ultimately, from a Major League Rugby point of view, we had to do what's right, what we felt was right for the league. And obviously in our discussions with World Rugby around that as well, and what's right for the game. But listen, I mean, ultimately time will tell, but I don't believe that these law changes are going to have a negative impact on the US national team.
David, you mentioned there were other trial laws talked about that didn't make it to this round. Are you able to share maybe one or two of them, what they could have been?
Yeah. We looked at one from the restart, with a kickoff at halfway. If players are offside in front, or the ball does go 10 rather than coming back for a scrum, we looked at a free kick. We looked at the 20-minute red card in terms of what World Rugby have brought in as a trial for the Six Nations around an egregious act, basically a real dirty act of foul play. Well, if you do a real dirty act of foul play, it doesn't really matter. It's gone. The reason that one didn't make it was obviously our TMO setup was slightly different. So we felt it was actually unfair in terms of the TMOs, referees, and players. Obviously, we didn't have the technology that World Rugby would have at Six Nations level to be able to implement that to the size. So plus we don't have the bunker system and the foul play review officer. So there were a few things around that. So yeah, there were a few other ones that were discussed that didn't make the cut. There absolutely were. Yeah.
It's interesting. A couple more questions before we let you go. Tweaks every year, new laws. More and more involvement with the TMO. Is a game getting too complicated to call?
That's a really good question. Sometimes when I'm reviewing referee performances and coaches are talking to me afterwards, I would say yes. Listen, we can make this game, and this is something I really try and do with the referees. We can make this game as complicated or as simple as we want. I mean, we have scrums, we have mauls, we have rucks, we have offsides. What else is and that is really what I try and do in terms of when I'm working with the referees. And then if you take a scrum, everyone says, "Oh, scrum's really difficult to referee. Who's doing what?" Well, ultimately, there are only so many decisions that you can have a scrum. Team A can get a penalty. Team A can get a free kick. Team B can get a free kick. Team B can get a penalty, or the ball comes out. So you leave it a penalty try aside, but I mean, there are only 5 things that can ever happen at a scrum. So yes, sometimes when we as referees are bad, coaches, players, we can overcomplicate this game at times, but it's actually a pretty simple game. And I've used the phrase a few times, which is straight out of the World Rugby Charter, which is rugby unions about contest and continuity. The team that have got the ball want that continuity to continue, and the team that are defending want to contest to get that possession. That's it. That's rugby in a nutshell. So yes, we can complicate it. The breakdown can be very complicated. Even using that term, the breakdown. If I was to give you, Fitzy or Bill, a law book and ask you to find me where the breakdown is, you wouldn't be able to. It's not in it. I mean, the breakdown does not exist in the law. The breakdown is a conglomerate of basically 3 laws. We've got the tackle law, we've got the ruck law, we've got the offside. So again, even just using that term, the breakdown, to try and simplify it rather than tackle, ruck, offside. So that's what we're trying to do. And not just us in Major League Rugby, World Rugby as well, and honestly, pretty much all the competitions across the world. We're trying to make this game as simple as we can for referees, for players, coaches, and ultimately, as Bill said, we're in the entertainment business, and for the fans and viewers at home.
Yeah, David, some of the questions I have to talk about, speeding up the game, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. Oftentimes, you see, I guess, talk us through the guidelines for like a TMO, and this is going to be my phrase, to like insert themselves into the game by like maybe going back and looking at an infraction, and then the game stops and the ref is standing there, trying to get calm. The person with TMO is looking at it. It's like, but that is slowing down the game a little. And people are griping like, why are we going back and looking at a few phases? No one really saw it. What are kind of those guidelines for? Because I'm sure the TMO doesn't really want to have to be like, hey guys, wait a second, there was a penalty back there. Talk us through that, like the guidelines on interrupting the game for a second.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say, Fitzy, is the viewer may at home may not have noticed the mistake that happened back at halfway, but I can assure you that on Monday morning when I get a phone call from the coach, the coach has been offended. They have noticed it. Your point's valid. I do, Jess. Your point's valid. We have taken the World Rugby World Rugby TMO protocol, and we've implemented that in MLR. When can the TMO come in? The TMO can come in to check it. It checks every try, and goes back to basically the last phase of play. So that's one in terms of checking tries, to make sure that try was legitimately scored. Because ultimately, let's be brutally honest, it is professional rugby, and we've got there are professional coaches, there are professional players. We've got to get those big calls right. So the TMO there is a safety net in terms of making sure that there is not a really glaring, obviously, we use a phrase obviously an awful lot in referee world called clear and obvious. Is there a clear and obvious mistake? May not be clear and obvious on the TV, but actually when we rewind it, we look at it again, it is clear and obvious. So we've got to do right by the game. So they can come in terms of checking those tries. The other aspect then is obviously around foul play. This works 2 ways. So if the on-field officials, referee or ARs, see an act of foul play, they can actually send it upstairs to the TMO to review that. Let's look at that again. Let's see. Did I see that right? Is that a red card? Or what actually happened there? Did he actually hit him with the shoulder in the head or whatever? So we need to check the facts basically. So the referee can obviously go up to the TMO to check those facts. Conversely, if it's completely missed by the on-field officials, referee and the 2 ARs, then if the TMO obviously has seen it on TV, the TMO can then actually insert themselves and go, hold on, Mr. Referee or Mrs. Referee, that we've a problem here. There's an active foul play. I need to tell you about it. So that's basically the 3 times that the TMO should be inserting themselves. around checking those scores to make sure those scores are valid, and then referee up to TMO, and then TMO down to referee.
All right, so Dave, we're going to let you go here in a second, but quickly, well, not quickly, however long you want to take. What's the current pathway for those who are interested in becoming a referee here in this country? And also, how long are we anywhere closer to maybe having an MLR referee or USA referee, maybe at the highest level, at the World Cup level?
And that's the last question first, because that's the easy one. Yes, we are. Yeah. Then we've got several referees involved in the under-20 Six Nations and Women's Six Nations from a World Rugby perspective, which is absolutely fantastic from a North American point of view. Lex Weiner's obviously off. He's got 2 games in the under as a centre referee, as we would say here, in the under-20 Six Nations in the last 2 rounds. So he's off to Europe to do those. Cat Roach is obviously refereeing in the women's Six Nations. Amelia Luciano is ARing in the Women's Six Nations, as is Shandaz coming out of Canada. So yes, we are. I work very closely with World Rugby in terms of their sort of referee selectors and coaching group. Brandon Peckrell, John Lacey, Amy Barrett, and Joy Neville, as well as ultimately Joel Hughes, who's also been the boss. Indeed, honestly, and I got an email this morning asking from John Lacey from World Rugby, asking could he get access to some of our footage to review the referees, because we've probably 3 or 4 referees that are being tracked by World Rugby with a view to progression. Lex obviously went to the trophy last year. Luke Rogan's already been to the World Rugby Trophy, etc. So yes, we are lucky from that perspective, and long may it continue. The problem is, of course, when Lex goes off to referee under 20s, he's not available for MNR, but he's back in Europe. It's it is a bit of a double-edged sword. It's fantastic that we get these referees out the other end, but during the season, it's not great to use somewhere for top referees. But that's the easy one. In terms of the pathway, I'm glad you asked me that. First of all, I would say to anybody watching this, if you haven't considered refereeing, I mean, listen, go and look at it. It is a fantastic way to stay involved in the game of rugby union. Whether you've retired from playing, whether injuries prevented you from playing. The one thing that I would always say about refereeing is you don't have to rely on 15 other players to help you to be successful at your job. But the coaches would. Coaches are totally dependent on the players out there. Referees can obviously carry their own responsibility out there. It's the best seat in the house. I mean, a lot of our referees would never have played anywhere near the level of MLR. Some would actually. We've got some referees who played at a very high level, but others wouldn't. And for them, I was not. I mean, I was never going to play professional rugby now, ever. That was just never going to happen. But the very fact that I was able to referee professional rugby for 10 plus years was a fantastic way for me to reach the upper echelons of the game. And I would encourage anybody that has even an inkling of refereeing to either get in touch. You can get in touch with myself. You can get in touch through the USA Rugby programs. We'd only be too delighted to hear from you and get you on a referee course. In terms of the pathway, then it's about you start refereeing in your local area, and we basically, myself and Jamie, have basically put in a system that's mirrored across the world. You referee locally. You do well, you're watched, you're coached, you're mentored, you're helped along the way, and hopefully you get better. And then you move up to the next level and the next level, and ultimately you come on to a national level. And then when you get to the national level, somebody like me will look over your shoulder and see if you've got any potential for Major League Rugby. And that's where I'm working very closely with Jimmy, obviously, to try and bring through those referees from the USA Rugby national group, obviously up into MLR. We're sort of tracking 3 or 4 at the minute that hopefully will make the debut. Jared Ford made his debut last year in terms of MLRs with centre referee. So that pathway is pretty clear. All the information is on the USA Rugby website. So if anybody has any inclination to referee, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Well, I believe before you send out that footage to World Rugby, I think Fitzy has footage of himself refereeing a U9 touch rugby game. Put that in there. All right.
Perfect advert for referee, Fitzy.
David Wilkinson, Major League Rugby Director of Match Officials. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really enlightening conversation and really informative. It's been a lot of fun.
Pleasure, folks. Thanks very much for having me. And listen, we wish everyone well for the rest of the MLR season, and long may the attacking and exciting rugby continue.
All right, man. Hopefully we'll see you at a match soon.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Yeah, good stuff. It really was. I don't know if I don't know how much I was expecting going into that interview because, how much can they say, right? You got to be political. You got to be diplomatic about what they're going to say. And I felt like he was really open about the trial loss.
Yeah, I do feel like there was a very much a layer of transparency about, hey, look, we understand that fans are griping about it, but again, we encourage people to be vocal, to be engaged, and he said everything right. But I do feel like there was some more clarity about just I like the decision making behind it, right? Because you go on Reddit, and again, I'm not trying to be dismissive of anyone's criticism, but some of the criticism I read was, the people making the decision, it's clear they'd never played the game before. And I feel like David's answers definitely refuted that. These are people who do care about the game, care about the future of the game, the product on the field. And he said it himself, they're not trying to reduce scrums. So I'll take him on his word for that.
Well, and so far in week one, and I had this feeling, this thought also, I averaged more scrum downs, but my thought was, early in the season, a lot more loose ball, that kind of stuff. So I guess we'll see how the season goes. It could be different. It could be less and less, but who knows? Maybe it'll stay the same. And he's right. I mean, he's not making that stuff up. This stats have to prove that there's a very minimal amount of times that these laws are actually in effect. So there's that, and it's all for the good. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. It's going to be a blast. And now when there is an issue when I'm watching game live, I have someone to yell at.
You can yell at Dave.
Yell at Dave. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and family. We'll chat again next time. Thank you.